noting, next report will cover this fully. But I'm going to mention it here. During the OSCE cleanup and ISTO, other requests have been unsuccessful, either due to ISTO and cleanup. The Kosovo police registered burglaries and thefts as the most frequent types of incidents, mostly targeting spreads quickly through the media, and according to our monitoring, potential returnees on numerous occasions indicate that such in the Kosovo police do react. We monitor this and we see that they do react. It's not all up to the Kosovo police, however. And these reactions often fail to reach the affected communities and the majority population in the area. So there are of course, it also applies to Serbs from Kosovo who wish to return to Kosovo. The OSCE mission in Kosovo monitors the implementation of these human rights standards because the right of return is a human right standard. As I said, enshrined in international conventions that have been incorporated into Kosovo Constitution and Kosovo legislation. We monitor the implementation of these human rights standards, and as a result, we are pleased today to present a report on the assessment of voluntary returns in Kosovo. The report provides information on institutional compliance with the relevant legal and policy frameworks, and it presents findings pertaining to specific thematic issues, for example, property rights, security of returnees at return sites, and the regional cooperation on durable solutions for displaced persons, the so-called Skopje process. The report also includes a set of recommendations for the central level to the Ministry of Communities and Return, Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning, Ministry of Finance, as well as to the Kosovo Police and the municipalities and the offices for communities in return, which are the first contact point for displaced persons and returnees. Let me start by commending the adoption by the government of Kosovo of the regulation on the return of displaced persons and durable solutions in January 2018. This enactment is a milestone development, as the returns process for the first time was regulated in a legally binding framework. Efforts are now needed to properly implement and systematically implement the regulation Kosovo-wide. Now, prior to this 2018 regulation, or adoption of the regulation, the returns process in Kosovo was governed by a non-legally binding policy framework, reflecting actually all the fundamental human rights principles. But it was not legally binding. It was a policy framework. So the difference is that as of January 2018, there is a legally binding regulation. Now, we believe that the lessons learned from the policy framework period can be taken and put to good use in the implementation of the regulation itself. Municipal working groups on returns and task forces were the two main mechanisms established under the policy framework. The working group's main tasks were to coordinate and implement all returns-related activities in the municipality in question, while the task forces were given the task of processing displaced persons' requests for assisted return. During the reporting period, these two mechanisms have generally been assessed to be functional, however, with limited implementation of their policy obligations. These mechanisms were designed almost exclusively to facilitate the implementation of donor-driven projects. And this falls short of the policy obligation to discuss the provision of assistance to beneficiaries in addition to the available donor funding, and to hold regular meetings to discuss cases, individual cases, and provide assistance. At the same time, the working groups and task forces had overlapping functions and different practices across Kosovo. So we're now looking at a period where we hope to see that this process of returns is not donor-driven, it's not driven by the foreigners, it's locally driven and local responsibility. On the other hand, the Municipal Offices for Communities and Returns, the MOCRs, are mechanisms with the most detailed legislative basis and are responsible for practical implementation of the return support. The OSCE mission in Kosovo monitors these offices on a daily basis. We monitor their returns-related activities in particular, and also their outreach and needs assessment, also the facilitation of go and see and go and inform visits, as well as implementation of projects to support returns. 35 of Kosovo's 38 municipalities have established municipal offices for communities and return. And then you're asking yourselves, if 35 of 38 have established such offices, which are the 3 municipalities that haven't? Well, I can tell you, it is Mitrovica North, Leposavic, and Zubin Potok. And there are returns implications for those municipalities as well.
Persons from Kosovo, also known as the Skopje process, as well as in areas involving solving property claims, construction of new housing facilities, recognition of documents, and a better security situation. However, displaced persons and returnees still face numerous problems. Liliana Petrovic wasn't able to offer us coffee in her apartment because it was usurped 19 years ago.
Pa izbjegla sam juna 99, kad i drugi Srbi iz Kosova. U onoj zloglasnoj koloni. Misleći da idem na određeno vreme i da ću se vratiti svojim korenima, svom stanu, grobovima svojih predaka, koji su ostali rasuti po Kosovu.
Liliana's fight to have her apartment returned to her began in 2004. She maintains that the individual who occupied her property tricked her into signing a preliminary contract for the apartment, which he later sold using a falsified contract. In the meantime, Liliana's apartment was sold to another party by the false owner, and lawyers